The one drop rule. I think a few people are misinformed when it comes to me and my opinions or thoughts on the one drop rule. Believe it or not, I actually don't subscribe to the one drop rule at all. The other day, a topic came up, and this was, if a black person is with a biracial person, are they still considered pro-black? And I said, well, of course, because the biracial person is still black. Then the person I spoke to said that calling a biracial person black is in itself not pro-black, because you're using a white supremacist term that was used to oppress black people. That would be a good point if the one drop rule was invented for people who were half black and half white. Before we go on, let's find out the meaning of the one drop rule and why it was introduced. During slavery, there was a lot of literature that regulated slaves and stated Negroes and mulattoes. Now, this wording, mulatto, being placed after Negroes in pretty much all of the text, ensured that the biracial offspring were lumped in with the enslaved Africans, and that these children would remain part of the slave population and still owned by the masters, whether they be their biological parent or not. However, this was not the one drop rule. In the early 18th century, whites were confronted with the problem of how to treat the offspring of mulatto and white people. Now, just to get something clear, biracial is someone who is half and half, not a quarter one thing and 3/4 something else. Strictly one half one thing and another half something else. So the one drop rule came into introduction to regulate the following generations of mulatto and white coupling, as a biracial child at that point was always considered a slave. So that was never at question. Hence why a lot of people will say a half black person is still black, and they may also refer to the dominant genes. Eventually, in the 19th century, they formalized the rule via statutes and court decisions to deal with racial definitions. These laws were very precise. Some states dictated the exact proportion as 1/4, and some dictated it as 1/8. Then in the early 20th century, it was changed to as little as 1/16, and then again amended to any African ancestry at all. So that means even if you were less than 1/16, they wanted you to be completely pure white. So what did that rule do? Well, it meant that someone who was 1/4 black or 1/8, or in some cases even less, was still considered black. So therefore, they would not receive any white privilege at all and were treated as though they were black. This meant no voting, no receiving of any of their white grandparents' or parents' inheritance, not being able to act as eyewitnesses, a whole bunch of stuff. But long story short, they were treated as quote unquote Negroes. They were known as quadroons and octoroons. So that's the one drop rule. The one drop rule was in place to oppress someone who is as little as an eighth black, which is like 12%. Or if it's a 16th, then you're talking 6% black. If you want to read that whole thesis, which is the Journal of Mixed Race Studies by the University of California, the link will be in the description. It goes into a lot of detail. I just wanted to touch on it briefly so we were all aware of what the one drop rule was actually for. You needed to be as white as possible in order to receive any sort of white treatment in society. And they deemed an eighth black person as not white enough, which is pretty self-explanatory because one drop, it implies a tiny amount. So someone who is half black and half white, that's not one drop. That's a half a damn bottle. So I personally don't subscribe to the one drop rule. To me, if you're half black, you're black. But if you're a quarter black, you're not black. Now, I'm not the blackness police, but you have to draw a line somewhere. So for example, I advertise black-owned businesses for absolutely free on my website. If you're black, check it out. If you're biracial, check it out. The link will be in my description. So one day I had this woman contact me and she said she liked to advertise on the site, but she's 3/4 white and 1/4 black, but she identifies with her black side. So I had to sit there and think, is she black enough to advertise on the black money section of my website? Now, as I said, I'm not the blackness police, but this is my website. This is my business, my brand. I'm entitled to dictate what I want when it comes to my money, my brand, and my business, especially when I'm doing things for free. So I decided to look at myself. Now, I'm not full black in the terms of 100% African. I'm 24% European. So let's say that this woman is the polar opposite of me. So if you can class this quarter black and 3/4 white woman as black, then you can class me, a man who's only 1/4 white, as white, right? No, you can't. No one is going to class a black person who has 1/4 white in them as white. So why would I class a white person who has 1/4 black in them as black? It wouldn't make any sense. Now that would be going down the one drop rule, which I don't subscribe to. There has to be a point where you draw a line. It's all about, in my eyes, a majority. But Angel, you said Puerto Ricans are black. Yes, I did. But I was talking about the Afro Puerto Ricans and the biracial Puerto Ricans, and also the triracial Puerto Ricans, where their majority is African above everything else that they may be mixed with. So, for example, there's this Puerto Rican or Dominican guy on YouTube, and I think his results were 45% African, 40% European, 7% Native American, and 8% West Asian. So his majority is African, which is 45%. He's predominantly African, majority black. Yes, he's black. He's also mixed, but he's an Afro-Latino. And I'll put the link to his video in the description also. I'll also put a link to my Ancestry DNA video in case you guys want to see that. So the other day, a Puerto Rican guy messaged me and asked me if he was in a swirling relationship. He told me that he's 20% African and the rest European. His wife, however, is a black Haitian woman. Long story short, yeah, he kind of is, because 80% white is a lot. Like, that's enough for you to be basically a white man who's mixed with a bit of black. Now let's look at Steph Curry. His mother is biracial and his father is black. So although he's black, he's still mixed with a quarter white. He's a mixed black guy, and we'll just call him black. Now some of you may have heard me refer to myself as black or even a mixed black man. I'm not biracial. I don't have one white parent and one black parent. I have essentially a biracial parent and a black parent, very similar to Steph Curry. We both have a quarter white in our genetics, but we're majority black. So that's what I mean when I say I'm black, but I'm also mixed with a little bit of white. Now this brings me to Shaun King, the leader of the Black Lives Matter movement. I have nothing against the Black Lives Matter movement at all. I'm in support of Black Lives Matter. But when Shaun King first had his race of question, he was very sneaky and disingenuous. He was economical with the truth. He said his father is black and his mother is white. Now, when you say to someone that your father is black and your mother is white, they will assume you are biracial. And they may even consider you as black yourself because they think you're half black. And when you say your father is black, no one assumes your father is half black. Now, just to make something very clear, when I'm speaking about percentages and fractions of blackness, half black, quarter black, etc., I'm not talking about percentages and fractions of African DNA, because not every quote-unquote full black person in the African diaspora is 100% African. When I say half black and a quarter black, I'm talking about what we identify and deem as black. So for example, a full black American or a full black Jamaican might, for example, be 80% African, but they're black and we class them as full black. And if they had a biracial child, we would class them as half black or 50% black, although they might not actually be 50% African, like Tia and Tamara. I believe they did a DNA test, and although they're biracial, half black and half white, they were like 45% African. So I just want to repeat, I'm not talking about percentage of African DNA. And even if I was, then Shaun King might even be less than 25% African. Some people have said to me, but it depends on what you look like. Because what if you have someone who is a quarter black, but they look more black than anything else? Then society will see them as black. So they're black, right? Well, again, that's going on phenotype. And phenotype is simply based on how you look, not what you actually are, not your genotype, your actual genetics. There are some biracial people who actually look white, but they're not white. So just because you look black, if your DNA doesn't match your looks, then no, you're not black. What if you look black, but you're only 10% African and 90% European? Are you still black? When people started demanding DNA tests from him, I was actually one of the people saying he's black because he's half black, and his phenotype doesn't matter because his genotype is what counts. Because people were like, oh, he's got really, really white skin, he's got thin lips, he's got straight hair. And I was defending him, saying phenotype doesn't matter. He's half black. There are white passing biracial people, but they're still black. Then eventually, he came out and said that he is a quarter black. So hold on. His father is not a black man, as in full black, but instead, his dad is biracial? Now that's disingenuous. He said he has never said that his father was full black. Yes, but you also didn't elaborate on him also being half white. He turned around and said his dad is black, he's biracial, and therefore he's also black. But that was a lie, because biracial does not mean quarter black. Biracial means half and half, not 3/4 one thing and 1/4 another. And that's kind of a big deal considering you're claiming to be black yourself. Shaun King is 3/4 white and 1/4 black. Is Shaun King a black man? No. He's a mixed white guy. He's a white man who is mixed with some black. Less than 25% to be exact. Now, some people say, oh, but society will still see him as black because white supremacy, blah, 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 blah. The one-drop rule, blah, 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 blah. The one-drop rule, yes, was designed to oppress people like Shaun King during slavery, to protect the white supremacist society's interests. But white supremacy also played the one-drop rule to the opposite when it suits them. So Barack Obama is seen as the first black president. But white supremacists will continue to point out that he's not black, he's biracial, and he's half white. Why? Because they don't want to have had a first black president. So they try to minimize his blackness. Now, if Shaun King became president, they definitely wouldn't call him a black president. He even says himself on his own Facebook, he says his mother is white, and then he says he is 3/4 white. He then states that race is a social construct, which I find interesting. Because when you say race is a social construct, you're saying it's not real. And since he's trying to claim blackness, that's funny. Because that's very Rachel Dolezal-esque, isn't it? Saying that race is a social construct, I should be able to claim whatever I want to be. Like, very Rachel Dolezal. Yes, he has 1/4 black in him, so it's not quite the same as her, but he's not half black, he's 1/4 black. I'll repeat again, he is 1/4 black and 3/4 white. I don't subscribe to the one-drop rule. The one-drop rule was not introduced for biracials, but quadroons and octoroons. Shaun King is a mixed white man. He's not black. That's the true origin of the one-drop rule. So stop using the one-drop rule when someone refers to a biracial person as black. I don't subscribe to the one-drop rule. And if you happen to be 3/4 white and 1/4 black, then your majority is white. You are a mixed white person with a touch of black in you. You might refer to yourself as mixed, but you're white. The same way me. My DNA results are coming up on the screen now. I am black, but I'm mixed with a little bit of white. I can't exactly start walking around and saying, I'm a white man, I'm basically Justin Bieber. Can I? Because 24% white does not make me white, and 24% black does not make Shaun King black. Peace, love, and coconut oil.
Hey man, that's racist. Please remember that from now on, brand new never before seen videos, as well as live streams, will only be available on my website, ikyg.com, via a Patreon subscription. ikyg.com is a black-owned, black-ran platform, 100% free from censorship. It's the only place where we don't have to worry about what we say and expressing ourselves. Make sure you check out the description and the comment section for important links, as well as information in video form that shows you what benefits you get when you support the site and join my Patreon. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, then don't forget to subscribe and be notified every time I upload a video. For exclusive content and perks, check out my Patreon. This is where we have private live streams, group chats, live Q&As, live phone calls, and open topics. This is a safe space where you can interact with other like-minded people, make friends, send each other direct private messages, and so much more without any trolls. And yes, you get to use GIFs and images in the live chats. So what are you waiting for? This is a completely independent website, free from censorship. If you'd like to make a donation towards the site so we can continue to put out the truth without fear of being silenced, then please hit that donation button. It's greatly appreciated. Check out the rest of the site for videos, private and public live streams, find out all the tea, and make sure to utilize the Black Money section of the website. Advertise your business absolutely free to people that look like you, free forever. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at angel_IKYG.